I've been working on a project on this, as you can see, and I'll explain to you what that is and how hard it's been on me when I go backpacking. Years ago, 30 years ago, I got a job at a farm, and it was a tree farm, and he paid okay back then. I think it was $12 an hour, which wasn't bad. That was pretty high paid back then, but it was a hard job. It was a really hard job. I would ride my 10 speed 2 hours minimum to get there because I had to travel to another city. And the hardest part about that tree farm was he had these trees he grew with long thorns. And we'd have to bend that tree over, put our arms around it, and shove, 100 spines into your chest and stuff. It didn't matter how many coats I put on. I tried everything. And then you'd wrap it, and the tree would be put on a transport truck and go someplace, I don't know where. So, and I had told that farmer, when I get enough money, I'm going to buy a motorcycle. That's going to be I'll be out of here. Because then I could get a better job because now I had transportation. So I was able to save enough money. I think I worked there like 4 months. And I finally had enough money because I was paying bills, paying rent, and everything else. I bought the motorcycle, and I drove in, me on the motorcycle. Now, I don't know what the rules are now, but back then, you could drive a motorcycle just by writing the test, as long as you had nobody on the back. So it was the quickest way I could get transportation. And that's why I went that route. It was a black Yamaha. Beautiful bike. And when I did that, I had pulled in. He says, "So you're quitting?" I said, "I'm quitting, man. I've had enough of this farm work." He said, "I don't blame you." He says, "You're a good worker. I'll see you later." He was a good guy. I drove down the road maybe, I don't know, 4 or 5 miles. And there was a golf course down there. This golf course was only for the rich. And I figured what it cost to get in. The membership was outrageous. I hated golf. And to this day, I don't like golf. They hired me pretty quick. I cut a lot of grass. I was there early, 5 o'clock in the morning. Cut a lot of grass, put in weepy tiles, put in all kinds of things for drainage. We built ponds. I did greens. I learned more about a golf course than I cared to know. And I worked there, 3 or 4 months before my accident. And a guy I knew called me and asked me if I could pick him up and give him a ride to work. So I took off on a motorcycle, picked him up, drove him to work. It was my day off. And I was on my way home. Now, this was my fault. And I was traveling down this road doing, I don't know, 100. And the speed limit was maybe 40, 30, I don't know. I was moving. I was clipping. Well, this car in front of me started to go right. And I thought, well, he's going to go right then. So I gunned it. I went down his left side. Well, he wasn't going right. He turned right, then he turned left. Why he did that, I'll never know. As he pulled in front, there was no time to stop. There was no gearing down, no braking, no nothing. I was there. And I was moving. I hit the front wheel well. So you know where the wheel is. I hit that. I crushed the gas tank on the Yamaha with my knees. I just crumpled it like a can. The bike had turned sideways while I hit the car. Half my leg was in the where the wheel was, the wheel well. The other half had hit the fender at the top. And literally, I crushed the femur on my right leg. I just totaled it. I then popped out, went over the car, hit the pavement. My head had come out of the helmet. All I had on was a pair of shorts and a t-shirt and my helmet. That's it. That's all I had on. I went over the car, bounced down the road. The cement things you park in front of has those big bars. They were sticking up. The bars were sticking up. People were amazed that I didn't spear myself. I went over those. And then I just dragged down the road. I should have died. Be honest with you, I should have died. They took me into the hospital in the ambulance. I remember nothing from that accident. I don't remember going over those bars. I don't remember going down the road. I don't remember nothing. This is just what people told the police, is what they said. So I end up in the hospital. They had me in the hallway for, I think it was 4 or 5 hours. I kept whining I had to pee. And then they undid my legs because my legs were all tied up. And I kept yelling at them, oh God, tie it back up, tie it back up. It was so painful. And again, I don't remember, but I was awake during this time. So my subconscious shut me down so I wouldn't feel the pain. That was a horrible time in my life. I lost 2 years of my life during that time. I was in the hospital for 6 months. They reconstructed my leg. The femur bone was just gone. They drilled a hole in my ass, and they put a bar down the center of the bone, down to the kneecap, a titanium bar, and they left that for a year. And the doctor told me, if it bothers you, let me know, I'll take it out. If not, we'll leave it. Well, it did bother me in the end, and they finally did take it out. And then all that bone marrow in between there had to re-heal, right? So the bike was totaled. I mean, there was no front tire. I crushed the gas tank. It was just crazy. Well, during this time, I was going back and forth to the specialist, to the doctor, and I noticed when I took a bath, I was sitting in the bathtub, and I'm looking down at my feet, and one leg looked shorter than the other. I was like, wow. So when I went to see the doctor, he turned around and I told him, and he said, he measured it. He measured the hip bone down. He measured the hip bone down from the other leg to compare it. And he says, looks like that leg's missing 1/2 inch. He says, I could have swore I did a better job than that. I was like, really? Are you being a smartass? Because that doctor he was good. Don't get me wrong, that guy was amazing. But he just had this weird sense of humor about him. So I literally lost approximately, I don't know, 1/2 inch off my leg is what I lost. So think about that. You got that percentage gone. Now I had to learn how to walk again. I had to learn how to ride a bike again. I had to learn everything over and get me where I needed to be. Now, thank God my insurance company paid for all this. They even paid me for being off work for 2 years because I paid into a heavy insurance. Because everybody said, oh, you'll probably get into an accident. You better get the best of the best. And I did. I got the best of the best. You know, everybody wanted a motorcycle then. Evel Knievel was around. He was famous. You don't know who he is. Look that up. But man, it really messed me up. So you think about it, and all my past videos, if you go look at them, you'll see me walking around a track. You'll see me doing some hiking. It's hard. It's very difficult. I might get a mile in, and then my back is so sore that I got to sit down for a good 2 hours to relax it to go again. So when I do a 5-mile hike with 40, 50 pounds on my back, that wipes me out pretty bad, is what it does. And being I'm getting older now, and I'm 61, I thought, well, it's probably much easier for me to blow a hip, right? Now, back in the day, they had this company that built me these shoes that added the 1/2 inch to it. They had fancy machines and everything else to build these shoes. And they weren't cheap. You know, we're talking back then $1,200, but the insurance company paid for it. So needless to say, I never ever got any of that ever done again. Well, this week I got a hair up my ass, and I was like, man, I wonder if I could just make those shoes myself. So I took a pair of shoes that I really don't wear, and I cut this off with the Dremel. Okay? And here's what I got so far. Now, this here, you know, I'm going to have to smooth some of that out and sand it on the belt sander. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a piece of this, okay, in between. So I'm raising this up, right? Is what I'm doing. And then this one goes on top of here. And then I've got and I'm going to have to, make it look pretty. I ordered the glue. The contact cement is coming. So that'll raise my right leg up is what that'll do. And then I'll clamp it. And this will be my first shot at making a shoe that basically is a 1/2 inch. Now what I did was I put both shoes on and I did step on it on the floor to see how it would feel if I tilted one way or the other. It feels good. Now what I used, and I'm trying to do this on the cheap because the glue I bought I think was $20. Now I bought these a long time ago. Okay? And this is like an exercise mat. It's like a foam. Here's what it is. Now I don't know how good this is going to work. But I've got a bunch of these and I figure I might as well use them since I got them. So by the time I'm all done said, this total setup that I'm working on, and I figured it out what one of those costs, I'm literally adding a 1/2 inch to my shoe for $25 is what I'm doing. Now when I'm done with this one, I got a pair of boots and another pair of shoes I'm looking at. I'm just going to rip the soles right off and see if I can just add a piece of that and see if it makes a difference. So ideally, this is going to bring me up where I need to be, okay? And you see the difference there. And when it does, well then I shouldn't have that wear and tear on my back. And it should feel a lot better. Now I'm going to have to take it out and go do a 5-mile walk without the pack and see how the back feels and what's going on. And then if everything's good, then do it with the pack and see what's going on. You see, this stuff here is a foam that's very, very, very flexible. And that's very important. Now, it does have those grates on there. I'm going to have to kind of sand that off, rough it up before I add the glue to it. But if this works, then literally, and there's business out there that do this. You can go see. I don't know what they cost. It's probably around $1,000 or more. It's what they do. But mainly, I'm like, this should work. Is what it should be. Now, I cut this off with my Dremel is what I did. And I didn't do too bad of a job. I didn't want to rip the whole sole off this one. As you can see, this part's over here. This is the inside. So we'll have to see when I get all this glued up and clamped down. I plan to glue it. I'm going to give the contact cement 2 coats. Basically on this side, 2 coats on this side. Let it dry and then press them together. And then get a good press on it. You see? Take my sander to it, make it look pretty. Do the same thing on this one. Glue it down, clamp it again. And give it 24 hours to actually dry. And then I should have a pretty good pair of shoes. We're going to see. But there's other stuff they use that they use in like cosplay. I forget the name of it. But I know what they're using there. But this in between it, it's even got some cushion to it. So we're going to have to see. But my whole life, I was pretty much like 61 now. So back then, I don't know, I was 18 when all this went down. It was a horrible time. It really did me in. It was funny. My dad came into the hospital to visit me. And my dad kept leaning over and he said, you were doing 50. Because I guess it was a 50 zone. He said, hey, you hear me? You were doing 50. My sister got angry with him. And she started yelling at her. She says, he could die, Well, if he dies, then he doesn't have to worry about it. But if he lives, he's going to have to worry about it. You're doing 50. I had a tough dad, man. I really did. And it rubbed off on me. But when they asked me, I didn't say I was going 50. And I guess they had a couple witnesses that actually turned around and said, that poor guy. Oh, my God, that guy cut him right off. And he did cut me off. But I was doing a lot more than 50. I don't know anybody that's doing 50 on their motorcycles. You go like a bat out of hell when you drive those motorcycles. And I miss it. I really do. I miss driving a motorcycle. I've always wanted another one. And my wife now turns around and says, you buy a motorcycle, I'm divorcing you. You know, I used to do wheelies on it. And I'd hit corners doing 100. I'd drop that bike on its side. My knee would be that far from the pavement when I hit those corners. Whew. I miss those days. But I was young. I was stupid. And I should have had a lot more protective clothing on instead of just a pair of shorts and a t-shirt. My whole body was a scab. That's what it was. I was in the hospital for over 4 months after they did the surgery to go through rehab and everything. And it was really rough. Now, one of the biggest things I had during this time, if you're actually sticking around listening to this story, I'm sure not most people won't, but the muscle between the knee and the hip had frozen solid, literally hard. I couldn't bend my leg, and it healed like that. And every time I tried to bend it, it hurt like hell. They tried to send a therapy guy into the hospital room, and he'd put a 2x4 thing under my leg and try to bend it. And man, it bring tears to my eyes. And I just about hit him. And my family doctor at the time, he says, you really need to bend that leg. If you don't, you're going to be on crutches. I says, when I bend it, it hurts. I feel like it's going to break. He says, you can't break anything. It has to go that way. It's the muscles that are preventing it from being bent. I said, so if I put my toe behind me and I just come down on that with all my weight, there's nothing there I'm going to break. He says, no, not at all. That'd be the quick way. He says, but it's going to hurt like hell, but there's no, you won't break anything. I said, all right, make me an appointment for 3 days from now. And they did. So then I went home. I bought, 4 big bottles of whiskey. And I sat there drinking shot after shot with my buddies. I got loaded. I was ripped, And I said, I think I'm ready. After about 4 hours of drinking, I stood up, put my toe behind me, and I came down on my leg with all my weight. You could hear the muscles like elastic bands going. Oh my God. I hit the ground. I curled up in a ball. I had tears in my eyes. That was one of the most painful things I've done in my life. And I just kind of laid there for, 3 or 4 hours. My buddies were getting up like, party's over? I said, dude, I can't get up. I'm fucked. I'm not going nowhere. I went to the doctor on the 3rd day in a wheelchair. And he says, why are you in a wheelchair now? And I told him. He says, so you can bend it. I said, oh, yeah, I can bend it. He came over and he grabbed my leg and he started bending it slowly. He says, don't hurt? I says, no, it don't hurt now. It's just uncomfortable. I can't stand on it. I got all the muscles broke like elastic bands. He says, that's good. Now we keep bending it while it's healing. He says, you'll have your mobility back. I said, all right. I wasn't the type of guy that wanted to do little bits of stuff. I've never been that type of guy. I'm not the type of guy that sticks my toe in the water and says, is it cold? Is it warm? I just dive in. I want it done. I want it over with. And I've been like that my whole life. So I have a 1/2 inch off my leg, my right leg. I blew the femur bone. It was in pieces. By the way, your femur bone is the strongest bone in your body. I shattered it, is what I did. So I think once I make this, I think it's going to make a big difference. Now, if it don't, maybe I'll go see a professional then. But if I'm able to pull this off and do this myself, well, it's only costing me like $25 a shoe if I have the shoe. There's 2 more shoes I want to rip the soles off and try it and really give it a good workout and see what I got to do. But, and I'm no cobbler guy, I'm no shoe guy. I'm just seeing if I can figure it out, that's all. And then we'll take it for a run and see how it goes. It's going to take 4 or 5 days for this special contact cement to come here. And in case anybody finds this video, it's got a 1/2 inch or whatever, and they're doing the same thing. I'll put the links in the bottom of the stuff I'm using. And I'll even put the links of some other stuff somebody said to use that's a more powerful type of glue, I guess. I don't know. To me, contact cement's the same all over. So that's my story and how I lost a half an inch. And believe it or not, they wanted to turn around and put me on disability back then. And I turned it down. But that's another story. And that's how I lost half an inch off my leg. And man, I missed that bike. I'll catch you guys on the next one.